What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel. My name is Paul. I make videos about Japanese society, life, and culture from the viewpoint of a long-term foreign resident. I've been in Japan for 20 years, and today I'm going to be talking to you about things that, despite 20 years here, or because of 20 years here, I'm actually scared of in this country. Things that frighten me about living here. This is not about safety and danger. You always hear that Japan is a very safe country, and generally speaking, that's very true. So that is not going to be the topic that I'm addressing. It's other things, and I have 4 primary examples and a few little tangents that I'll probably go on. But essentially, these are things that I've come to worry about over my time here. And the first one might surprise a lot of people, but it is Japanese ambulances. Japanese ambulances scare me because they are so slow. I was driving the other evening. I was going the speed limit. There was an ambulance approaching me from behind, and I'm just watching, waiting for the moment that I'm gonna really have to pull over and let the ambulance go by me. But it's basically going the speed limit like I am. So it's not even catching up. It didn't catch up to me until I reached a red light, and then I pulled over to the side, and the ambulance went through the red light as it's supposed to do, as it's allowed to do in Japan. But they really drive slowly in Japan. And think about it, in a medical emergency, time is of the essence, right? You don't want to be caught having a heart attack and then it takes 30 minutes to get to the hospital or something like that, because the ambulance is so slow. And it's something I've noticed that they're just overly cautious. And I get it, you don't want to cause an accident on the way to the hospital and cause more injury, possible death, etc. from driving recklessly. But there has to be a better middle ground. I mean, in America, the ambulances go crazy. I mean, they're fast, they're honking their horn, they have the super siren on top and a spotlight that can pop on you if it's after dark to get you out of the way. And they're flying down the road in the US. But in Japan, they really do take it slowly and carefully by comparison. And there has to be a happy medium there somewhere, because I worry I'm gonna have a medical emergency sometime and I'm gonna be in the back of that ambulance. When are we gonna get there? Why are we going so slow? Or a loved one, right? I'm riding with a loved one and I'm thinking that. And here's the next part of it. There's actually another level to this fear. In Japan, not every ambulance crew has EMT, or emergency medical technician training. Basically, sometimes they are literally just a driver and the person who kind of says, "Ganbatte, ganbare, hang in there, we're gonna get to the hospital soon." They are not allowed to give medications like pain meds or something to stabilize you in the case of a seizure or other things. EMTs in the US receive this training and medical licensure in order to give certain drugs and give certain treatments in the ambulance on the way to a hospital. And there are crews like that in Japan, don't get me wrong, they exist, but it's not all of them. It's possible you might get an ambulance where they're just driving you, and actually a little too slowly, to the hospital, and they're not giving you any pain meds, they're not doing anything to stabilize you. The crews are not licensed to do that. It has something to do, I believe, and if anyone out there knows more about this, and you can fill me in, but I believe it has something to do with the medical laws in this country, where doctors have to be the ones to prescribe any kind of medicine, and even nurses have to be given permission from a doctor in order to give medicine. They can't just show up in a patient's room and give medicine that a doctor hasn't approved, no matter what is happening to that patient. That's my understanding. I could be wrong about that, but regardless of whether I'm wrong or not, the fact remains that a lot of ambulance crews don't have licensure, don't have permission to use medications. And so they're just your ride to the hospital. And so I fear that someday I'm going to be having a major medical emergency. It's going to be really slow to get to the hospital. They're not going to be able to help me in the meantime. And that's something that definitely bothers me. The second thing that scares me about life in Japan after all this time doesn't have to do with me and discrimination, but rather has to do with my child and discrimination. A lot of times if foreigners bring up discrimination in Japan, you get a lot of the comments like, well, you can go back to your country if you don't like it, or it's Japan, it's their rules, etc. you're a guest in their country. Okay, even if we accept all of that for my case, it is not the case for my kid. My kid was born here, has Japanese citizenship, has every right under the Constitution as any other Japanese person. And if they were discriminated against because of their non-Japanese side, I think that's something to genuinely be afraid of or worry about. Now, how would that actually manifest? I'm not really sure. The most obvious example is there have been news stories in the past 10 years or so about private high schools who are requiring half or foreign children to dye their hair black because the school had a don't dye your hair rule, which sounds like they're breaking their own rule, which in fact they are, but the real rule is everyone has to have black hair. Everyone has to be uniform. No one's allowed to become a blonde or become a brunette or something. And my kid has lighter than black hair. They don't have black hair. And so if they went to a school like that and they enforced that sort of policy, I mean, it got a lot of press, so maybe schools like that have backed down or changed their policies perhaps. Hopefully that's the case. But, you know, that's just one example. Disneyland in Japan, famously, if you want to be a cast member at Disney and you're not a foreigner, you have to dye your hair black. You can't go in there with black or blonde hair or, you know, dyed pink and blue and whatever else. Cast members have to be like pure Japanese black hair. And I know some of you are probably saying, well, wait a second. Isn't Disney that super progressive company that would totally be supportive of people dyeing their hair any which way? Well, in Japan, the Disney theme parks are not owned by Disney. The land is owned by a different company, and I guess it's probably their rules for how cast members, and maybe it's also, you know, for conservative Japanese sensibilities, for their older customer base, or I don't know. Don't ask me why, but I just know that cast members have to dye their hair or revert their hair to the original black if they want to work there. So maybe because my kid is half, they wouldn't have to do that. I don't know what the policy is, but it seems like a bit of a discriminatory policy. Thankfully, the kid lucked out in that they really are kind of a chameleon, in that if they're with their mom, they are just assumed to be Japanese. They look Japanese enough. If they're with me, people are surprised when they speak Japanese, because apparently with me, they look like a foreigner. So depends on which parent they're with. So, like I said, chameleon. Whew. That was quite a steep staircase, a little out of breath. This is a local shrine in Tsuru City in Yamanashi that I have never visited before. This is off the beaten track of where I normally am, but it's very nice here. Very atmospheric, beautiful. And this is one thing that doesn't scare me about Japan. The spiritual element in this country fascinates me, and I love it very, very much. I'm quite enamored with Shinto religion, the artifacts, the art, the buildings, architecture, the worship, the belief in the gods, etc. I really do love this part of Japanese culture. Anyway, I'm off track. The third thing that scares me is related to the second, not in terms of discrimination, but in terms of like the kids' future. The demographic problem, very, very much an issue in Japan, and we all know about the terrible economic predictions that are being made about what's going to happen to Japan if they don't fix their demographics or let in immigrants or whatever the solution might be. I've talked about this in other videos in the past if you want to know my views on what could maybe be done to mitigate the falling birth rate and the mass exodus of the countryside to go and move to Tokyo, which is not only the fear for the kids' future and how the economic situation is going to be in Japan, but I fear for Japan and Japanese culture itself. Like these smaller towns, these places out in the countryside, the local cultures are dying off in many places. The young people move away, only the elderly remain. young people aren't having kids who move to the countryside, like just Tokyo and Yokohama and Osaka get bigger, while places like this get more and more sparse. And like, I fear for Japan's future just because of the demographic issue and the potential loss of Japanese culture, and also for my kids' future. And I think that makes sense for anyone who is concerned about their children and is also in love with a country the way I'm in love with Japan. I would be very sad to see local cultures, local dialects, local festivals, local foods, local specialty crafts, all of those things disappearing would be a huge travesty in my mind. And the fourth one I'm going to talk about today, which, yeah, a bit of a shorter video, which maybe illustrates that there aren't many things that scare me about Japan, so that's surely a good thing. But the fourth thing that bothers me is related to that, and as Japan ages, I am also aging. And I do honestly wonder about what the future is like for me, say if I make it to my 80s or my 90s. My maternal grandfather lived to be 98. My paternal grandfather lived to be 90. My father just passed away in his mid-80s. So genetically speaking, I might be predisposed to, making it to the 80s, perhaps even 90s. And being that old in a country where, it's not of my birth and it's not my first language. And one of the elements that particularly scares me is the research is pretty clear that when you start to lose your faculties in your older age, one of the things you distinctly lose is your second language. So I would be reverting to mostly English. So there's this, image in my head that I'm in the nursing home in the future someday, and I'm only able to communicate with the robot nurses or whatever will be taking care of the elderly then. I will only be able to communicate in English. I suppose if they're robots, that'll be totally fine. They can switch language interfaces and it's all good. But if it's human nurses, well, even then, it might be immigrant nurses. It could be from the Philippines and then likely speak English. That's certainly possible as well. But growing old in a place like this, obviously Japan doesn't, or I should say life in Japan doesn't scare me now, but when, if my wife passes away first and I'm on my own, and, if I start to lose my language ability or I start to lose my faculties in general, at least I suppose I should take comfort in the fact that at least for now the socialized medicine system works here and elderly are generally well taken care of. Although, well, there's no guarantees, right? So existential dread will exist in many different types of ways as one grows older. I'm in my mid to late 40s now. It's a thing. My midlife crisis was probably my huge, giant boost in sneaker collecting. For sure, that was my midlife crisis. But at any rate, those are the four things that worry me most about Japan. If you live here and you are here for the long haul, what is it that you worry about? What is it about Japan that scares you or worries you? Or is it just so much better here than where you came from that you're like, how could I be scared or worried about anything? Let us know in the comments what you think and what your own experience is. But at any rate, either way, I really thank you for watching the video. If you want to support the channel, please check out my Patreon below. You can order Japanese snack goodies from SakuraCo. You can sign up for Japanese lessons from Japonin. Those are all ways to directly help the channel and help me to continue making content. Don't like that word, content. Keep making hopefully informative videos, let's put it that way. So if you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe if you aren't already, because aside from the direct monetary support things, well, hitting like, subscribe, and sharing my videos with others who might be interested are certainly the best ways to help the channel. So thank you so much for watching. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.